Hi, everybody. This is Steve Olson and my great co-host, Bad Baby. Hi, Bad Baby.
Hi, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here again tonight with
And
two
we
of
have
my
a
favorite
special.
fellas.
Yeah, well, you wanted to introduce our special guest tonight, Bad Baby.
Oh, tonight we have Gill Broussard with us. And like I said, you guys are two of my special fellas.
Aw. So, welcome to the show, Gil. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Gil, we actually, this happens every time that I have somebody on. We started the show before we got on here, guys. We already started talking about, what we were thinking. But Gil, maybe a good place to start is just to talk a little bit through, a little bit about your ministry and what you do, but mostly just kind of introduce people to the whole big picture of how this all came to be in the public knowledge and where people like you do research on it.
Well, the way that I came into this was being a skeptic. I had friends of mine ask whether or not Planet X was real and whether or not it was biblical, and I gave an off the cuff answer that I didn't believe it was real, and it probably wouldn't have any evidence to support such a claim. And so I decided to do a search, and most of the stuff on the internet could be recognized as not being sound scientific research, or wasn't sound in its math, or violated principles of astronomy, like Kepler's law of planetary motion, sizes equivalent to an orbit of 3,600 years, and so on and so on. There's multiple points that you can point out that does not meet the physics, which are commonly stated on the internet. So I was, but one thing that caught my attention was the catastrophes that happened throughout history. That seemed factual based because there was eyewitness accounts, but we didn't have a cause for these, So I decided to check the Asian records, because the Asian records in their astronomy goes back about 4 to 6,000, well, between 4 to 5,000 years. And to my surprise, in 1054, they documented an object that was only about 960 years ago without a telescope. Telescopes were not invented yet. The Asian astronomers of China, Korea, and Japan documented an object for 26 months, 13 months coming in, 13 months leaving. And this was only by eye, witness accounts, just from visual. That means you have to have an extremely large object reflecting light for that period of time. And they gave it so accurate we could plot an orbit, which is a standard elliptical orbit. Okay. It doesn't have a like a helical type orbit, like if it was a mini solar system. This had just a standard straight elliptical orbit, like what you would expect for like a planet or a comet or anything similar to that. And when we put it into the software and put what the minimum amount that they could see by eye, and set that at the 13 months out, and put it along this path, this roughly gives us an estimate of its size between 5 to 7 times the diameter of Earth. And that white paper report, which is not, this is a scientific white paper from Dublin Institute of Advanced Studies. This caught my attention, that it was sound, it's reproducible, and that's what science is. It did not violate, it followed all known laws of astronomy at the time. And that's when I knew that we have a real object. And then when you go back with this chart you see right here, and you go back and track the history of when they were looking for this planet throughout history, you have a timeline. that in 1992, NASA pretty much went silent on the whole object, the whole subject. And whenever you do an overlay on where they sent the Pioneer and Voyager probes, well, this was the exact same area of space that the Asian astronomers witnessed this object coming in from. That's Sagittarius. So this object, when it returns, will be coming from that same point. This is without a doubt. This is, we don't know when, what year, but and we can estimate the months because of past, we have numerous past events where it says that it crosses the Earth path around Passover. And this next time it comes around would be very similar to one of the near passes. It had about 5 or 6 near passes to Earth. 3 of those 3 degrees. And the book of Revelation clearly states that this next time this object passes, it will be the worst time in all of Earth's history. But that is a close call, a close passing for it to occur. And there's many parts to the details with their text that, like it says, the 4 angels are sent to stop the winds. Well, how do you stop the wind on Earth? Well, the winds are created by the rotation of Earth. Earth's rotation will stop like it did in Joshua's long day. And we have a model that proves that out, that Earth did stop using, if this object like a comet and Earth goes through the tail of a comet, is plasma, not ice particles. And that we start to slow down 4.5 to 5.5% compounded hourly for a total of 3 days, where we come to a complete stop. This will happen again.
Gill, is that going to be like in reference to the days of darkness in the Bible?
Well, once we get into the tail, remember the tail is opposite of the sun. So you have either at one point a partial eclipse, and when we in the center of it, we'll have a total eclipse. You could have 3 days of darkness, but it's not similar to total blackness, because you're going to have the northern and southern lights come down all the way down to the equator. Your northern lights and southern lights are caused by plasma hitting our magnetic field. Well, the tail of this comet is plasma, and it's going to be hitting Earth in a very concentrated form. So the northern lights will be extremely intense in the southern lights, and there'll be so much of it, it'll come down all the way down to the equator, and it'll howl like a trumpet. Very similar to what the Bible says. There's too many details in the Bible that are scientifically correct that that a model proves out. That
right.
is beyond coincidence.
Well, again, I go back to you were the first researcher that I had ever heard that actually went to the, kind of the Asian, Asian continent for information. And, I kind of always went back and forth on this, right? As I researched, it's like this 3,600-year orbit is kind of pushed in the from the Sitchin perspective. And that seems to be the only thing that it's rooted in, because I can't find anything that says it's definitely a 10,000, you know what I mean? There's not enough data to say that. You're the first one that came and said, well, no, I found data. And could you tell us that story a little bit, Gill, about your story of going through and finding that information through the, kind of the Asian records again?
Right. I did a search on, comments and studies pertaining to the astronomy of the Asian records. And there's numerous white paper reports. But the one that caught my eye was when it was a reevaluation of Eastern and Western records of the supernova 1054. Well, when I read the summary, basically it was telling us that the supernova was a few months earlier, and that the main body of this sighting was not a supernova because it moved through multiple constellations. A supernova is stationary. And they saw this object for 26 months moving through multiple constellations. What is it? To view something, and then once they such accurate information on the angle, the nearness, how close it was to a certain known star, the day, the time of day, you name it, all the information we needed. And I decided to plot the information. And when I finished plotting this, I think I was the first one to do it, I came out with a very shocking result. We had roughly about 150 to 152 day separation between entry and exit. And that brought to mind Noah's flood, 150 days. It brought to mind Revelation, where it says from the meteor shower CO6 to the meteor shower CO7, it says that they'll suffer for 5 months before death comes. Well, 5 months is 150 to 152 days. There is a direct correlation.
Wow.
And then I said, well, how many times has it passed? Because that wasn't, remember, the Asian record was only 960 years ago. So how often has it passed? So I have to go back through history.
It passes even more frequently than what we're saying here.
Yes, it passed roughly around every 360 years or so. Depends if it bumps into anything or collide with something. Remember the asteroid belt that's between Mars and Jupiter?
Right.
Well, we have known formulas for the position of the planets that tells us the spacing that the planets are. Well, right there in that dead zone where that asteroid belt is, there's supposed to be a planet, according to the calculations. That is the remnant of a destroyed planet. Now the question that begs to be asked is, what destroyed it? A planet just doesn't blow up on its own. There's a cause and effect. That's what science is. Well, this planet, this rogue planet, can answer many of the anomalies we see in our universe. Why is there a scarred Mars? Why is Pluto such a strange tilted orbit, like something bumped it? Because they think it was part of Neptune. It was a moon off of Neptune. Well, moon just doesn't get extra energy and move on its own. That breaks one of the laws of thermodynamics. But everything in the universe is losing energy, not gaining.
Well, that's been one of my frustrations with this whole thing when I see charts like this. Could you take a minute, Gill, and this is I think your best estimate as to so this is your chart, right?
I borrowed this chart from the articles on the internet on what's talked about Planet 9, where they're looking for it.
Yep. So could you explain, because a lot of people don't understand, why do I have circles going off to the left and to the right? I think it would be helpful for people because this gets shown a lot, and it would be great to hear you give us an overview on it.
Just recently, I read 3 white paper reports on Planet 9 on where they think it is, the proposed orbit, the direction, and such. They get a little technical. And even one of them stated that that remember on the universe things are magnetic in nature. So if you have a anomaly to the right, you should have a similar one, but in the opposite effect to the left almost. One of them's going to be either stronger or weaker, but you're going to have something affecting on the opposite. And the white papers did state that the opposite section, which they thought wasn't the likely place, but was where I have mine, which where Planet 7X is here. The little blue item you see right here that I have marked. This red zone is where they for this Planet 9, but they're looking in the wrong direction. Well, it may have another planet that large. But you see this small little circle in the center, that little light blue, we have it zoomed in where Jupiter and everything, that's the outer reaches of our known planets, like Neptune. Okay, in the center over here, if you move it down some,
Right
you
here.
see the relationship of the small circle, right? That is the edge of our planets, where Neptune is. Okay, for this object to affect us, like the documented parts of history shows us, it has to come within Earth's orbit. Look where they drew Planet 9. It does not come inside Earth's solar system. All right, it's outside.
Yeah, here's the solar system, and this is outside the solar system.
All right. So will it really have an effect on us? No. Will it have effect on other objects? Yes. It will warp the orbital path of other objects, the orbital path. But can it give us the effects that we see that's documented throughout history? Like the tilting of Earth, 26 to 28 degrees. That's like two magnets coming very close to each other, and they're tilting, and then they straighten out back as it's leaving.
Yeah, we've actually been collecting deviation of magnetic and true north now for 6 months of data, and all I can tell you is the Earth is wobbling.
But the Earth has always wobbled.
Yeah, but it's not the normal precession. It's not normal precession though, Gill. It's like one night it will be 12 degrees off, and then the next night it will be like 5 degrees off. It's been varyingly, like, it's what I'm telling you. That's what we've been seeing.
Well, let me send you an object, a email pertaining to wobble.
Because that's been a big discussion. Like BP was talking about it the other day too, and I think that's caused some confusion. And I've always understood precession to be a 26,000 or so year process, not something that happens from season to season. Am I wrong about that?
No, that's the precessions of the but you're not understanding the way the wobble works. Okay, the Earth has a tilt. Do you know where north of the universe is?
No, it's relative.
No. Well, no.
What does science agree? You're asking me, do I know where science agrees north is? I would guess the North Star.
Let me send you something to where you can have your orientation correct. Okay.
Okay.
That's what, let's see here. Without proper orientation, that's what throws off people.
Yeah, I mean, it throws off people's golf game too, I've heard.
Yeah. See, when people read scientific papers, and the scientific paper said they're looking south of the universe, where do people mostly look? Polar south, don't they?
Polar south. That's what I would do, Gil. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not the universe south. You see, in a white paper report dealing with astronomy, that's called nadar. Polar south is called nadar. Polar north is called the zenith. North, south, east, and west on astronomy is like you take a compass and you set it down on the table. None of the 4 points point up or down. Got it?
Right. It's a two-dimensional representation, right?
Right. North, south, east, and west is on the flat plane of the universe. It does not follow nadar, so most people are not pointing even to the correct place on what north, and south is.
Right. Okay.
And let me see. Let me send you this one.
But as I look at the chart on the left here, the one that I have up right now, where you point out zero tilt and universe or south, I think what you're trying to say is that a normal reading we would have on that instrument? I guess would be a good question. would we expect it to vary that much over the period of time that's depicted?
The severity is what is wrong, not that it's wobbling.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
the severity of the wobble has increased. It has increased additional 4 degrees of tilt. And I think that drawing is wrong. That was done by someone who supposedly follows the wobble. And according to the information that I'm reading on there, do you see that date at the bottom?
This one?
At the bottom of the arrow. 7-6 on the bottom of that orange arrow to the left.
To the left. Oh, okay. Sorry. 7-6. Okay.
At the bottom of the arrow, there's a 7-6 or 7-5 or whatever it is.
In the last circle, the green dots.
Right there.
Right there.
Okay, now that tells you the position of Earth, where it is around the sun. Okay, that's the, let's see if that's right. Yeah. When you get around July 6th, okay, at midnight, looking south, you're looking due south of the universe there. Okay?
Wow. Okay. Yep. I gotcha.
At midnight, the sun is exactly at noon on the opposite side of you. If you're in December, around the 29th or so, at midnight, looking due south, you're looking north of the universe.
That's, of course, it has to be counterintuitive, right? Thank you.
So you have to understand where north and south is of the universe to be able to get this correct.
Right, and this is what you're depicting in this larger view, I guess. First of all, to kind of pull back and say, okay, here's the Earth and the orbits therein, and you're illustrating it further that this would mean that our whole solar system has a north, south, east, and west.
Correct.
From an astronomical point of view.
That is 0. When you're talking about a degree in space, that's 0, which is north.
Okay,
now,
gotcha. Yep, this would be 0 right here.
Yeah, Earth tilt. Now, Earth orbit is that green circle. All right, the green circle in the center.
Yep.
All right, that's Earth's orbit. The tilt of Earth points north of the universe always. As Earth is going around the sun, its tilt is towards the north of the universe. So it doesn't change. It's tilting toward the north.
So, Gill, what you're saying is the magnetic, is it a magnetic pull on our planet as Planet X comes at us, and that it tilts our planet more? The severity of the tilt is what's causing all the weather anomalies that we're going through?
Well, that's what I'm about to show you. You see the orange line on the other end of the other chart, that orange arrow?
Yes.
You can see the wobble is much more severe in that direction. How it's very large, the wobble, from point 0, which is the center of the axis of the Earth right there. Okay? It's wobbling, the wobble is much greater towards that direction. And guess where that is? That's south of the universe. Now, where is this object coming from? Guess where? South of the universe.
Wow.
Where did NASA send the Pioneer and Voyager probe looking for this planet? South of the universe. Where is the university studies, white paper report studies, that say that the orbits of comets, planets, and moons are warped in one direction of space? South of the universe. And where exactly in the south of the universe is all this warping taking place? Sagittarius, which is where its entry is coming. You see that red, you see elliptical orbit on that on the other chart, right? Go down a little bit. Move the picture up a little bit. You see, do you see where I marked the planet 7X right here?
Yes.
Okay, from the viewpoint of Earth on the green circle looking towards it, that's Sagittarius. From the viewpoint of Earth looking at that direction, that's Sagittarius. And for the meteor showers to cross Earth path twice, that means it has to be on the ecliptic, which is where your sun passes across the sky. And you memorize that path. That's also the path at night, looking south in the universe where this object is going to come from. That's called the ecliptic. That is the only way that we can have a double meteor shower.
So what you're saying is we're going to go through the tail of this thing twice?
Yes.
Which, tell us what that means, that the debris field is going to pepper our planet twice then, correct?
Severely, yes. According to the past records, I can prove that we've had double meteor showers. And the book of Revelation, which is a future event, describes the same severity or even greater. CO6 is the first meteor shower, and 152 and 1/8 day later is the second meteor shower. That's CO7. He tells you the first and the beginning. He tells you he tells you the beginning and the end. Then right after that, he describes what happens in between the two. That's why CO7 is a little hard to understand. That's the way he has described other things in the Bible. He'll tell you the beginning and the end first. Then he describes what happens in between that point. Whenever you get to the point where he says, and death will not come until the 5th month, that's the end of the description of what's taking place between those 2 points.
This point and this point, right, Gil? I mean,
Correct.
The point
Correct.
of entry and the point of exit from Earth's place on the ecliptic.
Right. Earth is going to cross near the planet at the exit point, which is that second one you pointed to.
This one right here.
Yes, that's where that's around Passover right there.
Oh, really?
Remember when Yeshua, there was 3 hours of darkness?
Oh yeah, yes, definitely.
And on what day was that on the Hebrew calendar?
Passover.
Passover Eve. Okay? But
Yep.
still. And where is the moon at on Passover Eve?
I don't remember. Refresh my memory.
It's a full moon. You can only have a new moon to have a solar eclipse, unless you have a third body, because the moon's on the wrong side of the earth.
Gotcha. Yep.
So it's automatically, if you look at it through astronomy eyes, the moon can only give you like 7.3 minutes of darkness. This was 3 hours, and it's on the wrong side of the earth. How do you get 3 hours? You got a third object many times larger. And the model shows us it's between 5 to 7 diameters of Earth. Exactly going along with, remember the brightness on how far it was at 13 months away and 13 months leaving? What would be the eye that a person trained eye could see it at, and everything. These numbers keep repeating.
So you would be thinking that the object would be somewhere in this area now between the orbit of Ceres and Mars. Is that what you're saying, or am I taking it too far?
Well, I don't know. I don't have any data at the moment. The only thing we can do is give an estimate, a guess, an educated guess. Because Earth is tilted an extra 4 degrees in the direction, and the sun is tilted an extra 6, it can't be 15 years away. 16 years away puts it at the edge of Neptune's orbit. Kepler's law of planetary motion in the model tells us this planet would take 16 years. If it reached Neptune, for it to reach the sun would take 16 years. This object is a lot closer than 16 years.
So that
for it to have this severity of effects. Now, one of the things the Bible has multiple times is 7-year droughts.
Right.
Remember Joseph of Egypt and a few other ones. This passes mid of the drought. You have 3.5-year drought coming in, 3.5-year drought as is leaving. Remember in Revelation when the two prophets show up, Elijah, that they bring with them 3.5 years of drought. You see?
Yep.
The data is repeating. History repeats itself, especially when it's a scientific model. The stories of the Bible are not they're historical events. There's no way that they could put this level of information that's scientifically correct with laws they have no clue of yet.
Right. And I've always believed that.
They have stars.
Yep. Well, this goes back to, I think that you've done excellent work, parsing out these different events in the Bible. See, this is the other thing that I've been getting around to lately, too, is that, God doesn't operate outside the laws of the universe. That's one of the things I'm convinced of. Like, in other words,
He created them. Yeah, man is only rediscovering them.
Right. That's my point. And it's like, what God, would call, what a man would call magic or weirdness of some sort, once you're advanced enough, you can see the science behind it, like magnetism. I mean, people back at the turn of the century didn't quite know what electricity and magnetism were. They could just see the effects of it. So they ascribed it to, any number of forces. But we then, as we learned, we became aware of differences of potential, and we became, aware of how energy flows between those two poles. And we just started to learn that stuff. And what you start to find out is that God's laws and the laws of physics are very beautiful and very predictable on one level, right, Gil? On the Newtonian physics level. But when you get down into quantum, it gets a little weird. But I don't think we're talking about quantum right now. We're talking about Kepler's law of planetary motion. And this map that you're showing, I've seen many times, different representations of it, including Mike Brown, as has written, has been writing on it lately again. And it's just showing that in order for these objects to have their elliptical orbits on the left, there has to be a balancing object on the right. That's what this thing says. And this is what I think all of academia agrees with this now, right, Gil? This isn't controversial within astronomy anymore, is it?
Correct. They just that you have to prove it. That means you have to have a sighting of it. Okay. Keep in mind, the larger object, Planet 9, cannot give us a double meteor shower. It's outside our solar system. All of these arc cloud objects, will not fit the scenario that we've seen multiple times in history of the double meteor showers, 150 days apart, the double eclipses, the 7-year severity of drought. It goes on and on and on.
Well, like that double eclipse that's coming up first, it's coming up. I was talking to David Mead about this. I don't know if you talked to David, but he has a lot of similar observations as you from the scriptural record. And, he was pretty freaked out that we have this, I think it's August 21st, 2017, the eclipse that goes across North America, right, Gil?
Right.
And then almost exactly 7 years later, it comes back the other way. How rare is something like that to happen on the Earth?
Well, everything is rare when you look at it as far as in the universe, because time is so great. It's kind of like, remember you were saying the 26,000 years for the tilt of the Earth to rotate 360 degrees?
Yeah, the precession, which I was learning about from Gordon Randall and a couple guys, yeah.
So rarity is known as whenever we come to repeating events. That really, to me, that really catches my eye.
Right,
so,
like rare isn't the right word. It's a predictable event that happens in its time. Right?
Right now, the Almighty, there's an interesting word in Hebrew. I mean, the lack of a word in Hebrew, the word accident. There is no such Hebrew word that means accident. And I find
that's true of a couple different cultures, Gil, but it's interesting. I never knew that about the Hebrew culture. That's interesting.
Yes. And one of the things that this proved out to me that you can have a planet that he uses, just like, remember uh, when Moses and the Israelites were ready to cross the Red Sea?
Mm-hmm.
He
Yep.
didn't tell them to walk on water, did he? No. It says, what was it, an eastern wind or something like southern wind, some came in and the waters parted and they walked across.
And that was the shift, wasn't it?
Right. Now, some people say, well, why would, and they get angry. Man, you're saying God has to use the planet. I said, no. I'm saying God can use anything he wants, is what I'm saying. He happens to use the planet. I said, well, how come he didn't make Moses and then walk above the water, walk on top? He used the wind.
Yeah, why is it so hard to believe that there was a pole shift and a major, like, and we're talking, when you say wind, I mean, we would be talking about hundreds of miles an hour winds, right? I mean,
Not necessarily. The earth might have tilted at the same time.
but again,
So-
it's like there's scientific rationale, and a person will automatically go back to, you don't think that God can order events so that we run right into the right thing at the right time? I just don't understand why people think they're so arrogant, like they can tell God what to do. I don't get it. Stop telling God what to do.
Throughout the Bible, he is using a lot of nature to do his bidding.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yep.
Because he controls nature. Remember, we have to look for the moon to determine when his feast days are. Okay, he didn't have to use the moon, but he did. And he put it in orbit for us to use. I think, if anything, they're limiting God's power when they don't allow him to use this full power. This planet's going to shake the entire Earth tremendously.
Yes.
Whenever it passes by. And it's going to
tell us that some of the things, Gill, that is going to happen when it passes through.
Well, first, when it approaches, you probably get about a 40-day warning. And when you see it, it's not going to be startling. It's going to look like a star rounding the sun, maybe a comet with a tail. It's not going to be startling. It's only going to grow in size visually to, let me send you another picture here. You can show it. Where I think it's about three days of our moon. If it's about 7 days out, it's only about half the size of our moon. Well, that's where people start to get worried, when it's about a week to 2 weeks out. I've seen this over and over. If you live anywhere on the Gulf Coast where there's hurricanes, you know that people panic very late in the game.
Yeah.
They don't take heed.
Well, people from Louisiana know that really well, don't they, Gil?
Anybody that lives on Texas and Louisiana and Florida and Mississippi, we know it very well. I'm going to send you some more stuff to take a look at.
Sure.
It gives you.
Just turned on.
And one of the biggest problems is because people live in that area have seen so many hurricanes. They're like, oh, I've sat it out. And then when it starts getting where it's unable to be handled, then at the last minute they try to get out. And this is one of the things that we're trying to warn people about, is that we're trying to prepare people not to wait to the last minute to try to survive. That's what this whole conference that's coming up is about, giving people the heads up on how to prepare and what steps to take, so they aren't taking for granted the wait to the last minute.
Yeah. And go ahead, Will. Sorry.
Just that if they don't have enough enough knowledge of astronomy, enough knowledge of the Bible, and enough knowledge of general science and physics. They're missing out. Remember, he says, my people die of lack of knowledge. He didn't say they die of lack of religion. He said, or lack of faith. He said, lack of knowledge. And the Bible is full of knowledge. But people are not open to the facts that he's given us, and they are rejecting a lot of it because it doesn't fit their perception on the way it should be. They're following their heart, and the Bible says one who follows their heart is a fool. You follow what the Bible literally is saying and the factual points of it. And when you do that, you find out that he's extremely real, extremely precise, and he's warning you ahead of time. So,
well, I think that, you know, the finer points are starting to fall away. I think the science is starting to come to the fore. I think there's been, you know, a lot of guessing and a lot of different things. But what I think is interesting, Gill, is in the last couple of years, people are feeling something is coming. It's, you know, I'm going to move away from science for a minute and just talk about how people feel. People just feel and sense this. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, they can feel like, I want to say like a sense of doom kind of, or foreboding, you know? Go ahead.
Well, they have to sense that something's wrong. Look, anybody that, you can talk to any farmer that deals, or any person that deals in the elements, the weather, they'll all tell you that something's wrong. They've never seen weather and seasons that are off as much as we have. Even the Eskimos in the north saying that the sun doesn't set in the same place, which is true, because of the wobble of the earth has caused the earth to set slightly different, about 4 degrees. Let me give you a example on how far 4 degrees really is. All right?
Okay.
When you look in the nighttime sky and you look at the moon, that's a half a degree.
So the width of the moon, yeah, the diameter of the moon is 1/2 of 1 degree of the sky, is what you're saying.
A half of a degree, yes.
Okay. Yep.
Not 1.5, but a half of a degree. Okay. If you hold up your finger, your little finger, at arm's length in the sky, the width of your little finger it doesn't matter the height of the person, or this is the same proportions. You hold your arm out at arm's length, and you hold up your small finger. Your little finger is the width of 1 degree. Okay, it's twice as wide as the moon. Earth's tilt has changed 4 degrees. That's 8 diameters of the moon over. So the next time that you're in the sky, picture 8 diameters of the moon over, and that's where the moon, the sun, and different things have shifted. About 4 degrees when it's in its extreme wobble area, which is when it's in the southern area. When we get to July, this is where Earth's wobble is the most extreme. And guess what? That's when Earth is the closest to our planet. You know?
Yeah.
It's
I've got your emails now, though. Did you want me to walk through a couple of these with you, Gill? Did you want to share some stuff about them?
Well, the one you have right there. See, the object, the planet will come in a counterclockwise rotation, which is very similar to most of our planets. Like Halley's comets will come in a clockwise rotation. This one comes in a counterclockwise.
Like this guy.
So it's a kind of a hybrid between a planet and a comet. This is going to be probably a whole new category of an item.
Yeah, that's what Ferrata used to say about that. What do you think of his research, Gill?
He's right on he's right on the description, but he didn't have the data to give the orbit.
Because
Remember,
yeah, go ahead.
if you plot a 3,600-year orbit on this model and kept the entry and exit at 150 days, the backside of this ellipse would go past Earth's orbit on the other. It would cross Earth's orbit 4 times. If you try to keep 150 days separation between the two.
Yeah, that would be simple geometry right there now, wouldn't it?
Right, right. So if it's not 150 days, then it's going to be considerably wider, and it won't even cross Earth's path. It's either going to cross Earth's path 4 times or none at all if it has a 3,600-year orbit. And guess what? For it to have a 3,600-year orbit, it has to be multiple times larger than Jupiter to get out, to have enough mass for the Earth to send it out that deep in space. The deeper it is in space, the larger the object should be, or denser.
Mm-hmm.
The weight of it has to be heavier.
And again, it's all geometry, guys, because it's the distance between the entry and the exit points is it actually, you can predict the amount of time it would take to orbit, and with the numbers of mass, you could actually predict speed and everything like that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, guy. I never heard anybody explain it that way. That
you
in
can
order,
read.
Yep.
You can read Dr. Harrington's papers.
Yep.
He and many other were estimated around 5 to 6 times. Well, the Bible tells us that we can't have a meteor shower over an hour. Well, that means it can't be over 7 diameters of Earth at the angle that it comes in March or April. So that's the maximum size is 7. And the smaller size is somewhere around 5. Otherwise, it'd have a shorter elliptical orbit than 360 years.
Well, I think the first thing that would be, if what you're saying is factual, and I have no reason to believe not, that means that the first time we go through the tail, and I believe that all the events are setting up politically for this as well, where I really truly believe they're going to use that period to lock down their control on the Earth. I don't think it's going to, that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be the beast system, just as the Bible predicts. One
of the signs that you will know that this object is close, and I've said that on multiple interviews, when it gets close enough for astronomers to see it with their own telescope, and I mean for them to, they have to allow us to see it at one given point or not. They got to turn off what's cloaking it. When that happens,
that's the part that I wanted to get into, because my research has taken, our WSO's research, we've been very much almost indisputable evidence of cloaking technologies that they're using to hide it.
Yes, they're 30 years ahead of what you're seeing in the YouTube videos in laboratories. They're 30 to 50 years ahead of that.
Yeah, we had a guy.
So when they turn the cloaking device off, what's going to happen, Gill?
Then we would see it like a star, and then people with with a telescope will be able to zoom in and give you close-up pictures that are not blurry. They'll be detailed just like we look at Jupiter or Mars. Okay, they'll be detailed enough to tell you that it's a real planet. There's a difference when you try to zoom in a telescope on a mirage, which is a sundog. When you try to zoom in with equipment, it gets blurry. Okay, it does not get sharp. Only a real object, when you zoom in, will get sharp.
Yeah, and that's been the frustrating part of this, and it's caused so much confusion, is that I really don't believe amateur astronomers, can overcome the cloaking technology yet. I just don't think they have, if they're intentionally hiding from us,
If they could,
I can't expect an amateur astronomer to see it. Go ahead, Gil. I'm sorry.
If they could get past it, then there would be no need for them to use cloaking cloaking. Okay, so of course they can't. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using it. That's why Reagan put it up there. He started the program in '85. They had it up and running by 1992.
Yeah. Okay. That's history I didn't know, because I remember I was in the military from '82 to '86, and I can remember him making speeches about the Star Wars that just was a little like, huh, like what, right? You know, everybody, and then remember how much pressure they came under when there was the huge budget battle in the early '80s, and they were like, the anti-missile defense would never work anyway, and you could, you know, now looking back at it, you could just see them saying, well, good thing we're not spending it on that. We're spending it on trying to cloak this thing, right? Gosh.
Well, he went to the extent of having the word numeral removed from the dictionary.
You see the same laser equipment. You see the same laser equipment can do three things. It can be it's a defense against ICBM. It can be a defense against small meteors. It can create holograms in the sky, and it can cloak an object. It has multiple capabilities.
Yeah, I don't think they put up that. By the way, we're getting a little bit of a background noise, guys. We'll try to get that out before I put this up. But just to let you know, but there, you know, this is one of the aspects of the planetary proximity that, you know, one of the things I've always thought about Mars was that it got too close to Planet X, you know, 7X, the way you put it.
It was after. Yeah. Whenever it destroyed Ceres coming in, the forward speed of Planet X slowed down to 1/20th of its normal speed, and you can see this in the biblical records. What you see in the biblical records is that right after the Exodus, it came back around for Joshua's long day, which was only 52 years. Well, it didn't have enough speed to go out into deep space. It had to return and gain speed as it goes around the sun, because the sun throws it out there like a slingshot. So it took 4 more trips around the sun before it gained its normal speed. So each time it progressively got into deeper space, deeper and deeper, and its speed was increased. So that's why you see in the biblical records, it moves from 52 years to 131 years to 336, then to a normal orbit of 358, which was Hezekiah. Well, somewhere in between here, I believe it was the 52 years. Right after that, it didn't go very far. It just went out to about Mars's orbit. And so it's turning around, and Mars is right next to it, getting the discharges of plasma at a very prolonged time. And that's what cut that canyon.
Yeah,
across
and I don't
surface of it.
I don't have a picture of Mars handy right now, but guys, I'll try to stick with it. But there's a huge gash on the side of Mars. If you've ever looked at pictures of the telescope pictures or the close-up pictures that we've taken of it, and it's a hideous, huge canyon, and it's pretty conventionally thought of as a huge lightning strike across the surface. So I think it's not pseudoscience anymore. We think it was an electrical interaction with another body, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, it's whenever you say lightning, people think of the normal lightning we have. I have to give them a scale to size. You should have some pictures there, I think, that I sent you. Some of the emails have 3, 4, and 5 pictures on them. If you go find the one about the eye of the Sahara, that's in Africa. You have pictures of it.
Yep, I'm grabbing it right now, Gil.
That is a plasma discharge that hit Earth, which I personally believe is around Hezekiah's time, about 700 BC. That crater is 30 miles across. This is it's not that one. You should have one that shows the eye of the Sahara. Okay, and that lightning bolt was 30 miles across. Now, if a lightning bolt 30 miles across was to hit let's say, Missouri, okay, it would probably take out the next 8 or 10 states around it, that all of the electrical equipment would be burned, fried, because of the electrically charged particles. It'd be like a small EMP in the surrounding area. You know, if the lightning would charge the air, and you don't have to hit the electronics with it. It just needs to be in charged particles of air. So wherever these lightning, these plasma discharges are going to hit on Earth, well, they're going to be sent to the Stone Age.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate like space weapon, right? I mean, it's like jeet. It's huge.
And we actually have a recording of this. This is when comet sighting springs passed by Mars. You should have a picture of that too. I sent you.
Okay.
Some of those you have to flip through. Let me see the emails, because there's 2 or 3 in the same email.
Yep, this one here.
Right. You can see that Mars was lit up in the bottom right corner, simply because you see that small dot on the screen. It says comet sighting springs. Well, when that tail crossed Mars, it lit up Mars like an entire light bulb. Well, instead of a rock as small as what you see on there, think of a planet that's 7 times larger than the Earth that's doing the same thing. That discharge is going to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, this discharge, the Rickott, I think that's pronounced Rickott structure, right?
Right.
That to me is what, when I think of an interplanetary plasma discharge, that's what I think would happen right there. That's what I would imagine.
Gil, are you saying that this is going to be like a giant EMP also? You started to tell us what the signs were. So could you elaborate on that for us a little bit about what's going to happen?
Nobody living has been through this, so I can only speculate. I can't say that it's going to be the entire Earth is going to be hit with an EMP. I'm trying to give the best results, that only surrounding countries on where it hit would be affected. I'm not sure if the whole Earth would go, if it was zapped the whole Earth. But you see, in other words, when Earth starts to go through the plasma tail, I have a picture of that, which is roughly 3 days prior to the crossing. They have to turn off all generators globally. You see? Because that plasma is too strong. It's like a solar flare from the sun hitting the Earth right there constantly. So they have to turn off all generators globally. Now, this is at the same time that Elijah and Moses show up for Passover. That's a nighttime event. And guess what? The nighttime on Earth is going to be the safe side.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I've been noticing a lot of trouble with nuclear plants lately. It just seems like all of a sudden, all these nuclear plants are leaking or having some kind of problems. They're shutting down reactors. I'm starting to wonder if this isn't part of that power shutdown that you're talking about, Gil.
It is, because certain older reactors takes 18 months almost for them to shut them down, to cool them off enough. So the older ones, they got to shut down early. The newer ones, you have less and less time to do it, you know, to where the water doesn't, let me see, evaporate off of it. When it's totally cool, it's
So
called.
that would be a sign for us that they're preparing for this coming in, correct?
Well, if there's enough of them, yes. But I'm not saying that it's reached that point yet right now. I'm just saying maybe it has. We need to see more.
Gill and Bad Baby, I mean, just to bring you some information, is that, you know, it's kind of just started poking its head up in the last 3 months, where multiple reactors across the country are all of a sudden having maintenance issues and, you know, leaks and all kinds of stuff never heard about with these things before. So either the news is getting way better, or they're shutting down nuclear plants. You know what I mean? In the process, I mean, it's an 18-month process.
The side of the Earth that's going to be facing the side of the Earth that's going to be facing the daylight side, which you have a picture of that. Yep. That side is going to be hit by a meteor shower in March, April, whatever month that Passover is falling in. But right there, just like it shows right there, okay, the daylight side is going to be hit. The nighttime side of Earth is the safe side, okay, because that's facing away from the meteor shower. And there's only a biblical model, and the model proves out correctly in our model when we use the plasma universe that Earth will slow down by 12 hours. That means the actual side of Earth that the astronomers are going to predict to be hit will be the wrong side, the wrong half of the Earth, because they do not compensate for a 12-hour delay in Earth rotation.
Ah, yes. Go ahead. Yep.
This is the false miracle of the Antichrist. He will claim that he's changing the Earth's rotation and that he's saving the Islamic nations, which is the Mahdi. This is the false miracle our Bible tells us about, because it's already declared in our text if you understand what he's telling. Remember when I said it says he sends the 4 angels to the 4 corners of the earth to stop the winds?
Yes.
Only way the winds stop is Earth's rotation stopping. Then there's another part in the Bible that says in the end days, I will make night into day and day into night. Well, that's a 12-hour delay, because the eclipse only gives you darkness. It doesn't give you light.
Right, and the eclipse only lasts for 7 minutes, not for a whole day.
Right, so you can't get that model. It has to be a 12-hour delay to change daylight into night and night into day. That's a 12. That's like saying I'm going to change noon into midnight, midnight into noon. That's a 12-hour delay. It's telling us that.
Yeah, look at you deducting everything over there, Gill Broussard. Using the powers of deduction to teach us science. Whoa, back off here a little bit. Just kidding. No, I have to throw a joke in every so often. I know it's a serious subject and a super serious topic, and I try to just break it up a little bit because it's so profound, you know, what is going on. And it's not just Gill Broussard, you know, making these connections and, you know, to the biblical record. It's also people like David Mead, who's also done a lot of the same analysis, Gill. And your stuff matches up pretty close.
Let me show you how exact. I was just showing you how exact it is in Revelation. But let me prove to you how exact it was in just 2 stories in the Bible.
Sure.
We already mentioned Yeshua's sacrifice on how exact that was. Well, going back to Joseph of Egypt, remember he had a dream at age 17 where the sky, sun, and moon bowed to him in a dream?
One of my favorite stories in the Bible.
Okay. Through astronomy eyes, I have a problem with that. You can't see the stars if the sun is out. So that word in ancient Hebrew is illuminated body. It could be our object, a comet, or a planet. then you can still see the stars.
Yeah, again, common sense applied to the story would simply say, I mean, would suggest that, right?
Now that's age 17. He was not in charge of in Egypt till he was in his 30s, and then after around 40, he was exactly 40 years old. That was mid of the drought, 3.5 year drought. Remember, I told you that 3.5 year drought coming in, 3.5 year drought as it leaves. Mid of that drought, we have the Nebra disk, the sky disk of Nebra. And it proves to us, because of the patterns on there, that Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees. And this is when, from a viewpoint from Earth, the skies bowed to Joseph when he was 40. He had the dream at 17, but it didn't come true until he was 40, mid of the drought. And that's what the Nebra sky disk shows us.
And I'm getting a picture of the Nebra sky disk for everybody to see here.
Now, how about if you go to, let's see, Joshua's long day.
Yeah, when they were in battle and the day was extended.
He was outnumbered 10 to 1. He had 30,000 men. The enemy was 300,000. And they're fighting hand to hand. That's extremely close with a sword, okay? And the detail says only the meteors were hitting the enemy, none of Joshua. The reason for that, the moon was just in the exact position in front of us, shielding Joshua's men from the meteors and only allowing the meteors to hit the enemy. Do you see how precise the Almighty is?
Yes, absolutely.
Revelation is full of details that people fail to understand because they're not using the knowledge of the science that the Almighty gave us to understand where to be and what time to be there, because his feast days are not vain religious acts. They're rehearsal patterns getting you in the right place at the right time, and Passover is one of the times that you're supposed to practice that in Jerusalem. But this next Passover, when this planet comes around, don't miss that appointed time. And the other time that you're supposed to practice is Sukkot. Sukkot teaches you how to build temporary shelters. Guess what that is? That's about 6 months before Passover.
Wow.
And I didn't know what Sukkot was until I went to Jerusalem.
I've never heard the term before. So basically, there's a part of the leading up to Passover 6 months prior to, where you're actually supposed to make a temporary shelter. Is that what you're saying?
It's not leading up to Passover. This is just a practice run.
Just a practice run, and you know.
These are dry rehearsal. The word in Hebrew means dry rehearsal. It doesn't mean feast. You can have a feast in a dry rehearsal, but the rehearsal is not a feast. You see, you got to put it in the correct connotation. These are dry rehearsal that he's having you practice. He says, Sukkot, you're supposed to go to Jerusalem and practice building temporary. It's about a week long. That's a practice run. You know why? Because the last 6 months of this thing's approach, and not until I went to Jerusalem did I figure out why. The buildings are made out of stone blocks. They can't take being shaken. The buildings won't be safe. People have to live in temporary shelters. They'll have to go outside until all this shaking, all of the quaking is stopped, which is the last 6 months of its approach and probably the last 6 months as it's leaving. Okay? Yeah.
I see how you're all these things fit together. And Bad Baby, the only reason I'm muting you is because we're getting a little feedback. I'm gonna unmute you. Do you have any comments real quick?
Oh, that's okay, honey. I kind of figured my mic was messing up again.
No, it sounds good right now. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I did a few things while I was muted. So Yeah, and I just wanted to ask Gil, we were talking about what the elite plan on doing that will give us some signs, and I want him to tell us a little bit about what he thinks about these FEMA camps and what will go down when this all starts to occur.
The first question, I believe that he's already given us the lead if we're listening to him and following him. I believe if we followed the Sukkot principle of going to Jerusalem, that's roughly, we don't know which Sukkot is going to be, but we should be practicing them, and that we will be in Jerusalem at the correct time, before it's announced, before we can, really see it. We might see it once we're over there. But after that, they probably will cause global terrorism, and plane flights won't be flying. I think that's the reason why he has us in Jerusalem for Sukkot, to be there ahead of time. If you're following his rehearsal patterns. And then
fascinating stuff.
We're actually staying there until Passover. And keep in mind, the night that the generators are turned off globally is the same night of Passover when Elijah and Moses show up. It's a private meeting. Because when electricity goes, there's no TV or radio. No one to announce that they showed up. Remember, the Bible says, for adulterous and wicked generation, this world will only have one warning. The sign of Jonah. That's the 40-day warning. Will be the only warning this wicked and adulterous world will have. His people who follow his instructions and practice these rehearsal patterns, these dry runs, will be at the right place at the right time, because his information is exact.
Wow, that's a good place to kind of bring it to a close. And Gil, I can't tell you how thankful, and Bad Baby, I'm thankful for you too, but thankful, Gil, that you took time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us and share this information. You've given us a lot to think about, sir.
Say that again?
I said you've given us a lot to think about.
Okay, all right, good. I'm glad. Study his word and understand that these are not vain religious acts. They are actual factual in all respects. And he's telling us where to be at the right time. And he says, follow his moral laws. He tells you the right way to adjust the person's attitude and live correctly. That's what his laws are about.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me when we think about this kind of thing is how temporary everything really is. This is a dynamic cosmos that we live in. And one of the things that I look at when I see this coming and it's had a negative effect on human race, but I'm not sure if it's all negative, because it sure seems like, and I know this is going to sound terrible saying this, but it is getting so evil right now, Gil. I can't take it. It's too evil. Yeah. It's like you can't look anywhere without seeing evil. It's just horrible. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
No, the Bible warned us. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. They're going to try to destroy the seed. And remember, the Jews are only one tribe of Jacob, or two maybe. All right? They're still got the other tribes that are scattered throughout the world. Remember, he said that there would be nations of nations, plural. So we can't just say it's only the Israel we see today. That's singular. Yeah, it's going to be multiple.
Yeah, he was referring to a geography in that. No, I don't believe he was referring to geography at all.
Right. So the enemy's trying to wipe out the seed of Jacob, Jews and Christians, basically. If you want to do a broad stroke, it's an analogy. That's what they're after. And he said they would cut off your heads. Have you seen anybody having their heads cut off lately?
Yes.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
This is why they have the guillotines in the FEMA camps.
Well, the
I mean, it's a big puzzle, isn't it, Gil? And if you put the puzzle together, it's not that hard to figure out, is it?
we've talked to people who were scheduled to be managers of these FEMA camps. They already told us what it's for. These are the people who will end up being homeless. When you lose your home because the economy has collapsed, and you're on the street sleeping, they pick you up.
Yep.
They
They're
bring you
already
to FEMA
doing it. I seen an article where in California, this guy was actually, I saw a video. He had his iPhone and he was going, what are all these homeless people? Their shopping carts are all lined up here and the people are gone. And they didn't know where they went. And they said, why would someone homeless leave their purse in this shopping cart? Because they were rounded up.
Well, again, this is the time to, to get close to God at this point in history. I've been saying it over and over again. But Gil, thanks for, the FEMA camps, the dots are connecting, things are getting weird. It's important to stay in the loop on this stuff. And Gil, I wanted to also, before I let you go, a lot of the people that are trying to learn this over the last couple of years, you've been really valuable to us. I would not know any of this information that you're showing, obviously, if you hadn't have done the research. And you helped this community to understand it a lot better. And thank you for that.
Well, Miss E, welcome. I just did I had to end up learning Hebrew because I had to go back and look up the old records, because part of our English is not interpreted correctly. In the Hebrew, it states things correctly, and some of our English, because they didn't know what they were trying to interpret. They didn't have an idea of planets and any of this. And when you go back and start, look at the actual Hebrew, you start to find these particular points.
Right on.
And,
yep. All right. Well, thanks, Gil, and we're looking forward to hopefully talking to you again soon. I know you're, considering to participate with we hope you do, with the Thrival conferences, and we'll get that worked out later. But I need to thank you because, when I first started to try to research this, Gil, it was really hard to find information that had meat to it. You know what I'm saying? Where it wasn't somebody channeling a zeta reticuli, or you know what I'm saying? It was like a person doing science. And I think you've always been that way. And, just congratulations about that. And can't wait to talk to you again soon, have you back on the show.
well, thank you. Just try to stay grounded and be factual to the people, because you owe it to them. It's a privilege to have people's ear, but make sure you're telling them as close to the facts that you understand it to be.
Yep. That's all I can do, really. I mean, and then have other experts that have studied it better or more in depth, like David, like you, like Bob Evans, like Gerald Clark. Even though they come from different perspectives, I found it helpful to look at different people's points of view. But I will tell you what's remarkable about what's going on right now is how aligned it is to the scriptures. That is undeniable. The way events lay out and the way the scriptures have predicted it, that to me is pretty easy to see.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And there is no way they could guess consecutively correct 14 different times and give us a future event at the level that they've given it. They've given us satellite points of view. They've given all kinds of things. Like they say the Earth, it's hit so hard that it wobbles like a drunkard. That's the view from space. Okay, last time I checked.
Yeah, I don't think you can see the Earth, being a drunkard unless you were seeing it from space, right?
Right. And there's a few other points in there too that it's a viewpoint.
And I think that's what it comes down to, man. Because when this type of thing shows up in the sky, and and the Bible tells us that men's hearts will fail them for fear because they hadn't known about it. that's what we're hopeful that these shows do, is to help you so that when you start to see these things, you're not in a place of fear and catatonic, but you're in a place where you can act. And that's another thing that we're trying to do here. So,
All right, Steve. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you so much, Gill, for coming on tonight.
yep.
And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person if you come to the conference.
All right. Steve, I have one other thing that I learned when I was in Jerusalem with the rabbis.
Oh, please share.
Their texts, and I never shared this with any prior to this. The rabbis in their text says that this object has 7 moons. And that caught my attention because I never said it to anyone. But we have, a friend of mine had forwarded to me before I ever met the rabbis. We had, where they showed a dragon in the sun all the way, they always show a dragon with a large spherical object in the center.
Yeah.
Well, some of these show 7 objects in front of it. Exactly 7. Multiple pictures of it.
Yeah, I know.
That they drew. These are 7 moons. That's why it was misinterpreted as a mini solar system, but it's not a mini solar because it wouldn't have a natural elliptical orbit. It would have
see, that was the thing that you really did kind of crush that for once and for all for me just now, because I could never jive what Farada was saying and what you were saying. I could never jive the 7X idea. And there's this whole body of thought that thinks we're dealing with a brown dwarf. And again, this isn't a normal planet. Like, for example, as you start to study Venus, you'll notice that Venus doesn't have its own electrical field. It doesn't generate a magnetic field like the Earth does. It would be considered like a comet planet, right? You start to put these little pieces together and you start to say to yourself, wow,
Venus is more a moon that was dropped off from our planet, because it doesn't have the characteristics of a true planet.
Well, and
it doesn't have a magnetic field.
Yeah, I could never jive the idea of brown dwarf, because that would seem to me that would cause way more devastation than what could be, explained in like, for example, what you point out, the biblical record and other records, right? A brown dwarf would be ELE, man. That would be the end of it.
Yes, it would only have passed once, and it would have dragged us into deeper space.
Right, it would have had to have if it would, yeah. But
because this object came so close to us, Earth tilted at least 3 to 4 times in its path. It tilted 26 to 28 degrees tilt is what the numbers keep generating and showing us that. We have solid information on that. It doesn't flip 100. The magnetic fields might flip. You see, when a magnet is hit by lightning, the magnetic fields flip on a magnet. When Earth is going to be hit with this plasma strike, the magnetic north, which is different than the geographic north, the magnetic north will flip 180. But the geographic north, when it gets close enough, it will tilt 26 to 28 degrees.
Wow. And again, all these numbers are lining right up with, wow. All right, Gill, I got to let you go. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate this information. And guys, everybody have a good night. And thanks again, Gill.
All right. Bye-bye.